Most workplace conversations don't fail because people are incompetent or unprepared. They fail because no one sets them up properly. A meeting drags on, an email chain explodes, or a simple update turns into confusion. Not because the information was wrong, but because the listener never clearly understood what the conversation was about, why it mattered, or what was expected of them. The first minute of any work conversation quietly decides whether the next 10 minutes will be productive or wasted. Master that minute, and you gain control over how your messages are understood, prioritized, and acted upon. Chapter 1. What is the first minute? The first minute begins at the exact moment a conversation turns from casual interaction to work. It is not the greeting, the small talk, or the polite opening. It starts when the subject becomes a task, a decision, a problem, or an update. According to Fenning, this brief window is the most decisive part of any workplace conversation because it determines whether the listener understands what is happening or spends the rest of the interaction guessing. In most organizations, people communicate constantly. Quick hallway chats, instant messages, emails, calls, meetings, and updates. The hidden problem is that many of these exchanges start without clarity. The speaker jumps into details without explaining why the conversation exists in the first place. As a result, listeners try to infer intent while simultaneously processing information. This mental juggling creates confusion, missed expectations, and wasted time. The first minute exists to solve this problem. Its purpose is not to rush the conversation or compress complex topics into 60 seconds. Instead, it is about setting the direction. When the listener understands the topic, the purpose, and the key point early, everything that follows becomes easier to process. When they do not, even accurate information can lead to incorrect conclusions. Fenning emphasizes that poor communication is rarely caused by incompetence or lack of intelligence. It is usually caused by a missing setup. People assume shared context when none exists. They assume others know why the information matters. The first minute removes those assumptions. By deliberately shaping the opening of a conversation, you give the listener a mental framework. They know what bucket the information belongs in. They know whether they're being asked to decide, act, advise, or simply listen. This clarity reduces frustration on both sides and dramatically increases the chance that the conversation leads to the intended outcome. The core idea of the first minute is simple. If you want better results from conversations, you must stop letting them start accidentally. You must start them intentionally. Chapter 2. Framing the conversation. Framing is the foundation of the first minute. It is the short, deliberate setup that tells the listener what the conversation is about, what the speaker wants, and what the most important point is. Fenning defines framing as a combination of three elements: context, intent, and key message. When used together, they create instant clarity. Context answers the question, what are we talking about? It orients the listener's attention away from whatever they were previously focused on and toward the correct subject. Context might be a project name, a client, a report, a system, or a situation. Without context, the listener has no anchor. Intent answers the question, what do you want me to do? This is the most commonly missing piece in workplace conversations. When intent is not stated, listeners guess. They may assume they're being asked to approve something when the speaker only wanted feedback, or they may assume the information is just an update when action was required. Explicit intent removes this uncertainty. The key message answers the question, what is the most important thing I need to know? This is the bottom line. It is the conclusion, the outcome, or the headline. Fenning strongly advocates for stating this early instead of hiding it behind background details. Doing so respects the listener's time and mental energy. When these three elements are combined, the framing becomes a powerful tool. A conversation that might otherwise wander becomes focused from the start. The listener understands the subject, the purpose, and the priority within seconds. Framing also prevents what Fenning refers to as conversational ambushes. These occur when a discussion appears to be about one thing, but suddenly shifts into a request, a decision, or a problem. By stating intent up front, the speaker ensures that both parties are aligned from the beginning. Another critical aspect of framing is handling multiple topics. When several issues are bundled together without warning, listeners become overwhelmed. Fenning recommends either clearly stating that multiple items are coming or separating them into distinct frames. This allows the listener to manage attention and priorities more effectively. Framing may feel unnatural at first, especially in informal environments. However, with practice, it becomes concise and fluid. Over time, it transforms communication from reactive and unclear into structured and reliable. Chapter 3. Structured Summaries. Once a conversation has been framed, the next challenge is delivering information in a way that supports understanding and decision-making. This is where structured summaries come in. Fenning introduces a simple but versatile structure: goal, problem, and solution. The goal defines the desired outcome. It explains what success looks like and what the speaker is ultimately trying to achieve. Stating the goal first ensures that all subsequent information is interpreted in the correct context. The problem identifies what is preventing the goal from being achieved. It should be factual, concise, and relevant. The problem is not a long history or emotional explanation. It is the obstacle that matters right now. The solution presents the proposed action or available options. This may be a recommendation, a request for a decision, or a set of choices. By articulating the solution clearly, the speaker guides the listener toward resolution rather than leaving them stuck in analysis. This structure works because it mirrors how people naturally think about work. Most workplace discussions are about achieving something, encountering an obstacle, and deciding what to do next. By aligning communication with this mental pattern, structured summaries reduce cognitive load and increase clarity. Structured summaries are especially useful for complex topics. They allow the listener to grasp the essence of the situation quickly before diving into details. If more explanation is needed, it can be added afterward without losing focus. Fenning also highlights that structured summaries prevent information overload. Instead of overwhelming the listener with data, the speaker provides a clear framework that makes details easier to absorb. This approach is equally effective in spoken conversations, emails, and presentations. When combined with framing, structured summaries form the core of the first minute. Together, they ensure that conversations begin with clarity and purpose rather than confusion. Chapter 4. Time checks and validation. Even the clearest message can fail if the listener is distracted or unavailable. To address this, Fenning introduces two critical practices: the time check and the validation checkpoint. A time check is a brief question that confirms whether the listener has the capacity to engage. It shows respect for their schedule and prevents frustration. Asking whether now is a good time allows the listener to be present rather than mentally elsewhere. Validation checkpoints ensure that the message has been understood as intended. After framing the conversation and delivering the structured summary, the speaker pauses and checks for alignment. This may involve asking whether the explanation makes sense or which option the listener prefers. These checkpoints are essential because human working memory is limited. If understanding is not confirmed early, misunderstandings can persist unnoticed until they cause problems later. Validation allows corrections to happen quickly before time and effort are wasted. Time checks and validation also shift communication from one-sided delivery to collaborative interaction. They invite engagement and signal that clarity matters more than simply speaking. By incorporating these small pauses, conversations become more efficient and less error-prone. The speaker gains confidence that the message landed correctly, and a listener feels respected and involved. Chapter 5. Applying the first minute at work. The techniques of the first minute are designed to be practical and flexible. Fenning demonstrates how they can be applied across a wide range of workplace situations. In emails, framing and structured summaries help readers understand the purpose immediately. Placing context, intent, and key message at the beginning prevents misinterpretation and reduces back-and-forth communication. In meetings, the first minute sets the tone. Clear framing at the start clarifies objectives, expectations, and outcomes. Updates become more useful when they follow a structured summary instead of a stream of details. In one-on-one conversations with managers or colleagues, beginning with the key message shows professionalism and respect. It allows decision-makers to focus on what matters most and ask for details only if needed. The first minute is particularly valuable in difficult conversations or when delivering bad news. Leading with clarity prevents misunderstandings and demonstrates accountability. It also creates space for constructive problem-solving instead of defensive reactions. Across all these situations, the principle remains the same. Intentional beginnings lead to better endings. By consistently applying framing, structured summaries, time checks, and validation, communication becomes a reliable tool rather than a recurring source of friction. The first minute is not about sounding scripted or formal. It is about being clear, purposeful, and respectful of other people's time and attention. When practiced consistently, it becomes second nature, and the quality of workplace communication improves dramatically. The message across these chapters is clear. Conversations do not organize themselves. If you do not shape the opening, confusion will shape it for you. The first minute gives you a simple, repeatable way to take control by framing the topic, clarifying intent, stating the key message, and validating understanding early. When practiced consistently, this approach saves time, reduces errors, and builds trust. People know what you mean, what you want, and why it matters. Over time, you become known not for talking more, but for communicating better. And in the modern workplace, that ability is not just helpful, it is essential.